Vice Mayor Harris, Councilwomen Odom and Wilson, Councilman Williams and Iguodaro, to our charter officers, Madam City Attorney Sonia Knight and Dickens, Mr. Clerk, you all give him a round of applause. He was a good host, Mario Bataille. In his absence, our wonderful city manager, my good friend, my partner, Cameron Benson. To all the residents, present or not, my love, thankfulness, and admiration to all of you for allowing a simple kid from the Bajas to become the mayor of his hometown. Now, special greetings, of course, to my mother, Kirkland Gilbert. You all give her a round of applause. Always good to have her here with us. My younger sister, Carrion, she told me not to call her name. Will y'all give her a round of applause right there? You know, my son, Oliver, little Oliver the fourth. Oliver, raise your hand. Just raise your hand. He's like, yeah, he wants to go to dinner, y'all. I mean, it's a thing. This evening, and you know, before we even go any further, let me just say, she told me not to do this, but my goddaughter, Zaria Reed, is here with us. You all, she just finished her first year at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and she has a 3.7 grade point average, and she's Miss Freshman. Yeah, no, she'll be mad later. This evening, we congregate for the 16th time in the city's history to talk about where we have been, where we are, and where we're going together. The city is 16 years old now. It was 16 years ago that the residents chose community over self. They abandoned the independent identities of familiar streets, neighborhoods, enclaves, cul-de-sacs, and tribes, and created one city. Speaking clearly with one voice, birthing the city of Miami Gardens is the third largest city in the county and the largest predominantly African-American city in the state of Florida. Now, this is who we are. We're the city of Florida Memorial University, Miami-Dade County's only historically black university. But we're also the city of St. Thomas University, the apple of the eye of the Archdiocese of Miami. You know, we're the city of senior citizens who gather every Tuesday and Thursday at the community center to recreate. But we're also the city of the largest youth football and cheer program run by a city in the state of Florida. We're the city of local businesses like Lorna's right here up the street, but also like Starbucks right here up the street. That must be DJ or somebody who really loves their latte. We are Awash, Ethiopian's finest cuisine, and the Lickin', our finest cuisine. We're the studio of the new Studio 183, but also Yaramba Restaurant and Lounge. We are the Islamic Center of Greater Miami's Mosque and the Lubavitch Educational Center, where you can get the finest in Jewish education, and Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, my home church, and my pastor gave us a wonderful prayer. You all give him a round of applause. Thank you, Pastor Jackson. Look, we're the home of Super Bowl 2020, as well as the home of Jazz in the Gardens, the fastest growing music festival in the country. Bernita Nelson, sitting right there, she runs jazz for us. She told me not to announce, and I told her I wouldn't announce that Jazz in the Gardens, the dates were going to be the second weekend in March this year, because I don't think we put it out yet. I told her I wouldn't say it, so I won't say it. I don't know. We're going to post it later, though, right? Thank you. Look, we're international soccer and homegrown hip-hop. We're the city, we're funny this way. We can socialize on Friday night, listening to traditional Miami-based music like Luke and Trick Daddy, and we can still go to church on Saturdays and Sundays and sing total praise with all our hearts. We can listen to both of those songs, all of those songs. We can sing every word of each of those songs, and we can mean all of those songs with all of our hearts. But we're like that. We're complicated. We're not one thing. We are many things, aggregated as Miami Gardens, something extraordinary. 16 years later, I stand the proud son of that city. The city of all things, the city that was predicted to fail, but defeated those odds. The city that was foreshadowed to be a borrower, but emerged as a lender, the city that was wrote off as barren, and yet now we blossom. That's Miami Gardens. Now, nowhere is this the city's spirit of overcoming great obstacles more evident than with regard to our finances. Lest we forget, when I became mayor in 2012, I announced that by the year 2020, the city would have financial reserves of no less than 20%. Now, I remember, some people in this very audience, I remember them laughing at me. They said, well, that's not possible for Miami Gardens. I mean, they LOL'd me. They BOL'd me. They LMAO'd me. They ROFL'd me. It was all fun and games. It was all hilarious. Now, the historical context of that was that when the city was created, the city owed the county money, and folks were unsure about whether the city could ever be fiscally sound. Today, I am proud to report that the city finished last year with the fiscal reserves of more than 26%, and that number is expected to grow. For the first time in the city's history, the value of all the city's property is nearly $5 billion. That's up 7.4% from last year. Look, we are literally financially equipped to weather the storm. Now, and clearly, you all see we can afford tents and fans. Look, for the 6th year in a row, we've seen significant growth in the numbers of permits issued and the revenue generated from those permits. Put in layman terms, more people are building things, more businesses are opening, and more jobs are being created. Now, powering our strong financial growth is a robust economic development. But we don't need numbers to tell us that we're growing. We know that the lines in Burlington Coat Factory are very long. We know that the lines in Dede's are long. We know that the lines in Ross are long. We know that the parking lot in the bays and Topgolf are full. We know that you can't get a booth in Waffle House. We know that Starbucks has rapidly become an indispensable part of the Miami Gardens community, and they have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful manager, DJ. If she's here, you all give her, DJ, right there, give her a round of applause. She's a rattler too, y'all. I'm just saying. Look, we see the millions of square feet of office and industrial feet being erected throughout the city. That space will support thousands of jobs. Companies like UPS and Bridgepoint are moving major operations to Miami Gardens. Now, we know that Optimal Health, founded by a Carroll City chief with her husband, is bringing excellence in healthcare to Miami Gardens. We know that the Oasis of Miami Gardens is an extraordinary co-working space that will introduce infrastructure to intentions, to talent, and help create wealth in our community. We know what we can see. We know that Miami Gardens is rising, but we're not done yet. Our story is not complete yet. Over the next month, if all goes as planned, and I'm just going to cross my fingers to the county commissioners over here. I see you, Commissioner Hardman. Welcome. Give him a round of applause from the city of Miami. He came late, but traffic was bad. Yeah, we're going to fix that, though. We know that over the next month, if all goes well, we will finalize our agreement with the county for the creation of the Miami Gardens Community Redevelopment Agency. Now, the Miami Gardens CRA is being created for one singular purpose: to develop a performing arts space in town center here in Miami Gardens. In a city of 113,000 people, there's no place to have a play, a small concert, a comedy show, a mid-sized banquet. This ought to offend every notion of community that we understand. We shouldn't have to go to the Adrian R. Center or Fort Lauderdale to see a play. We shouldn't have to go to Miramar for our recitals. We should be able to have nice quality entertainment in our hometown. This is the natural step, evolution, growth, maturation of Miami Gardens as a city into Miami Gardens as a community. The Miami Gardens Performing Arts Center will give us the ability to gather for entertainment and recreation, but more, it will serve as an anchor tenant to restaurants, hotels, retail, and entertainment. All of that's coming to Miami Gardens Town Center directly north. Now, that's what's next. This year, thanks to investment that Stephen Ross made in the stadium, we saw the Miami Open make its debut in Miami Gardens. Y'all give that a round. It was a great tennis tournament. Now, while prognosticators, and for some of the people who don't know what that means, haters, while they predicted that it wouldn't do well, they said that you can't play tennis in a football stadium. They said that people won't come to Miami Gardens for tennis. They said that we couldn't get it built or permitted quickly enough. They said, while they said, we worked. Together we worked. Barbara Jordan worked. Carlos Jimenez worked. Stephen Ross worked. Tom Garfinkel worked. The entire Miami Gardens team worked. And together, all of our work paid off. The facilities they said couldn't be built and permitted in time were completed early and are magnificent. The people that they said wouldn't come to Miami Gardens for tennis, well, I guess they were right about that. They were correct. People didn't come to Miami Gardens for tennis. More people came to Miami Gardens for tennis. And attendance was up 30% over the prior year at Key Biscayne. But it's not just the tennis. As Florida Memorial and St. Thomas Universities bring football online, as we get more international soccer, as more concerts come, as Jazz in the Gardens expands, as we welcome back to South Florida the Orange Blossom Classic on Labor Day 2020 with the host team, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, located in the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida. Every time we say FAMU, y'all gonna clap. That's right. Look, we need facilities in this city that allow people to spend their time and their money in Miami Gardens. We need hotels for people to stay in. We need restaurants for people to eat in. We need retail outlets for people to frequent. And this isn't just important to visitors. It's important to residents. The more businesses, the more jobs. The more businesses, the more revenue. That's the only way to lessen the tax burden on residents long term. That's how cities remain fiscally strong and vibrant and also provide services to their residents. They are able to have a lower tax rate because of the strength and diversity of the uses and activities that are allowed in their city. And we can do that, and we can do even more, and we will do more. We can do more for developing businesses, and we can do more for residents trying to improve their properties. Look, people seeking permits in Miami Gardens will be able to apply for a permit online, plan review, permit issuance, inspection requests, check on the status. All of this will happen online. For customers who do come to this building, we're going to make their visit faster and more efficient. They will be able to electronically get in line while they're in the comfort of their own homes and receive a text telling them their number is about to be called. In essence, they will be able to get in line before they even get out of their car. We value your business and your time, and we want to help you do more business and spend less time waiting, and technology can help us help you. Now, it's not just our processes becoming faster and more efficient. We're going to also make them cost a lot less. We've reduced the city surcharge for single-family units by 50%. Additionally, we've reduced the impact fees for residential single-family units, in some cases up to 20%. We've also taken the opportunity to provide an extra discount on permit fees for folks who will invest in hurricane-proof windows. Y'all see we got rain. And solar panels, because we also have sun, and also water heaters that are powered by solar panels. If you're willing to invest in our planet, we are willing to invest in your property. Now, as economic development happens and the city grows and residents invest in their property and property values grow, as a city, we also continue our investment in public infrastructure, and we continue our investment in the collective fight for fairness. This past December, we had a ribbon cutting at Buccaneer Park. Buccaneer Park is now open. This coming August, we're set to have a ribbon cutting at Norwood Park. And in December, we will have the long-awaited ribbon cutting for Bunch Park. Now, the ribbon cutting for Bunch Park completes the most comprehensive investment in the Bunch Park area in the last 30 years. Additionally, this October, we will break ground on the city's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, recording studio, and television production area at Risco Park. Councilman Williams. Look, this facility will represent the most forward-looking expedition into the activities that the city will offer for the youth in the community. This November, we're going to break ground on our senior center, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated for the enrichment and enhancement of our seniors and their lives. Y'all, Lily ain't clapped the whole time, and she started clapping. I have no idea why. Look, these groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings are all made possible by the investment that Miami Gardens voters made in themselves through the general obligation bond. When fully executed, the Miami Gardens park system will be one of the best in the country. We will have facilities that are modern and forward-looking, that speak to who we are and what we want to become in our community. Now, we also voted to take control of the special taxing districts that are responsible for a good portion of the lights throughout the city. We decided that we wanted a city that was well lit. Well, this summer, the police department, code enforcement, and public works will begin the work of walking the streets in the evenings in conjunction with neighborhood associations and crime watches to speak about which type of lights are appropriate in each area. That effort will be led by James Pogue. Thank you, Mr. Pogue. Or should I say Dr. Pogue. James recently received his PhD, y'all. Now, our collective fight for fairness takes many forms. Last year at the State of the City, I announced that we would sue the city of North Miami Beach over their unfair and illegal assessment of a 25% service charge for all businesses and residents receiving water from the city of Miami Beach in the city of Miami Gardens. Now, is there anybody from North Miami Beach here? They ain't come back this year? I don't know why. Damn. Or should I say, receiving water from an aquifer underneath Miami Gardens through a water plant that's inside Miami Gardens. It should go without saying that the North Miami Beach should not be able to charge Miami Gardens residents 25% more for their own water. Look, we have asked the legislature for relief. We received none. Our residents have been to the city of North Miami Beach and asked and begged the city of North Miami Beach for relief. They received none. We are now asking the courts for relief. If our residents are to be subjected to this unfair and we believe illegal surcharge, it is going to be pursuant to a court order, period. Now, the city of Miami Gardens is also involved in two other major lawsuits, and they're both currently before state and federal courts, respectively. As a community, as a city, we sued Wells Fargo along with other big banks because they gave really bad loans to people who were seeking to buy properties in Miami Gardens. Now, if you had good credit, they still gave you a bad loan, a loan that was predestined to foreclose. If you had the exact same credit and you were applying for a loan in a different area, they gave you a much more secured loan instrument. We believe this to be a fundamental violation of the law and a form of discriminatory lending. We understand that each individual borrower cannot seek redress on their own behalf, so we seek redress for the city. In the name of the city. You can't just do anything to us. In the name of the city. You can't just treat us any old type of way. In the name of the city, we demand that you treat people seeking to buy property, create wealth, make their homes in Miami Gardens the same way you treat similarly situated people in other communities. Now, our litigation regarding firearm preemption is also making its way through the courts. If you're a local elected official, and you're elected here in Florida, you can't stop people from bringing guns into City Hall, any city building, or even parks with kids. If you do, you're subject to personal liability. This law was enacted by the Florida legislature. The same legislature that won't let you bring a gun into their offices will let you bring guns, or anybody bring guns, to where your children play. Local elected officials are leaders selected by the same voters that select legislators to serve in the legislature. And we deserve the ability to act in their interest and reflect their local values. But if a city passes a law limiting the areas where guns are allowed, all of the local elected officials are subject to personal liability and removal from office. This is a fundamental disregard for the will of the people as expressed through their elected leaders, and it cannot be allowed to go unchallenged. And if this law is allowed to stand, it must be by order of the court and not legislative dictate. Now, our fight has also taken the form of our collective need to be counted. Through the Office of Civic Engagement and in partnership with organizations like the New Florida Majority, the city will engage in an aggressive campaign to have every one of our residents counted for the 2020 decennial census. The census requires the government to actually count everyone, every person in the country. Based on that count, the electoral map that elects the president is determined, and federal resources are allocated. You know, it hasn't always been that way. Today, it's worth noting that on June 19th, in 1865, the American dream became real for many slaves in America. Look, it was on that day that many slaves learned that over 2 years earlier, President Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation, granting them freedom. And so while some folks celebrate the 4th of July as the birth date of the country, and it is, the birth date for black folks in this country as a whole person, entitled to every aspect of the American dream, was in 1865 on June 19th. But it wasn't just in 1865. What we know from Juneteenth is that the American experience becomes real for Americans at different times. It is our actions that give that American dream life. It is our efforts that redefine America as reflective of our values. With that in mind, happy birthday to the 2/5 of us that wouldn't have counted before 1865. In a city carved out of hope and cobbled together with faith, we know our individual value as well as our collective strength. In Miami Gardens, during this census, we can count and we will count. Now, it's not just enough to count for the purposes of the census. We must matter for the purposes of life to one another. For all the areas that we've had extraordinary success in, there are areas where there is still much work to be done. Now, every so often I have these events, and we call them Tea Time with the Mayor. I've been doing these teas since before I was the mayor. It dates back to early years when I was a city councilman. You know, a tea is when a resident invites me into their home. We bring the refreshments, and they invite their friends and family and neighbors, and we sit there and we talk, and they ask me questions, and I answer them to the best of my ability about whatever is going on in the city. Great ideas like the Homeowners Bill of Rights have been ideas that were initiated from tea events. The different elements that came together and formed the general obligation bond were given birth at tea events. I love having tea events because it gives me the opportunity to get out of City Hall and actually engage with people on a very intimate level. When you sit in somebody's living room and you're drinking some water or some tea and everybody has some fruit or some chicken wings or something to eat, people are a lot less interested in making noise for an audience and a lot more interested in answers to actual questions. Well, we had a tea event this past Monday, 2 days ago, in the Scott Lake area. We talked for over 2.5 hours. Yeah, no, it was a long tea. It was a record long tea. You could even call it a slow brew. They told me that joke wasn't going over well. It's fine. I like it. Look, there were maybe a little more than half a dozen residents. We spoke about everything. There were questions about parks. There were questions about recycling. There were comments about how horrible North Miami Beach water is. There were more comments about how horrible North Miami Beach water is. I think then there were some more comments about North Miami Beach water also, but we're going to skip the rest of them. We spoke about economic development. We talked about the stadium. Shout out to Marcus Bacharmus and the stadium folks who are here. Welcome, Jason. Thank you all for all you miles. Thank you for the social justice efforts you all are doing through the foundation. We really appreciate it. Look, we talked about the community center. We talked about swimming pools. We literally covered, I believe, every department in the city in one way or another. Well, about two hours in, we're having this conversation. One of my classmates from Norland, I won't call her name, Gisette Elise. She's not here, is she? Okay, good. Gisette Elise. She said, can we address the elephant in the room? And so me being silly, I thought somebody had pledged Delta. I didn't know where there was a line. I didn't know what was going on. She said, well, what are we going to do about crime prevention? She followed that up with, we haven't spoken about that at all tonight. I paused. I said, no. I've been speaking about crime prevention the whole time. You see, when I was talking about special lighting districts and beginning to walk the neighborhood with Public Works and the police department and code enforcement to see where lighting needed to be improved, that was crime prevention. When I spoke about the Miami Gardens Police Department, the POW program, and the summer breakout spots at local apartment complexes and police explorers, I was talking about crime prevention. I was talking about building a relationship between law enforcement and our youth, familiarity that will help them understand each other and help keep our community safe. That is crime prevention. When I spoke about sending young kids, young men and women from our community to the police academy to become police officers in their hometown, and the community-based police training and the implicit bias training that we got for all of our officers, I was talking about crime prevention. Having officers who can understand the community is important when you need to partner with the community to create safety in the community. When I talked about economic development, bringing new businesses to the community, creating new jobs in the community, I was talking about crime prevention. When I talked about having every new development open in Miami Gardens put up cameras that feed into the real-time crime center in exchange for a reduction in their impact fees, I was talking about crime prevention. When I talked about the city funding Leroy Jones and the Circle of Brotherhood to implement violence reduction strategies at the grassroots level, you all give a round of applause for Leroy, he's here. When I talked about the city funding crime watch organizations at a neighborhood level, and when I talked about the city sponsoring events for the Florida parents of murdered kids, I was talking about crime prevention. When I spoke about partnering with the U.S. Marshals to track down people who are wanted for violent crimes and taking them off our streets, I was talking about crime prevention. When I talked about partnering with agencies to conduct probation sweeps, that was crime prevention. When I talked about partnering with the state attorney's office to crack down on human trafficking and all of the evil that it brings to our community, I was talking about crime prevention. When I talked about all the free after school and summer camp programs at A.J. King Park, Carroll City Park, Rolling Oaks Park, Scott Park, that we provide in partnership with the Children's Trust. I was talking about crime prevention because those activities engage children during at-risk and open times. When I spoke about offering free anger management and dispute resolution and self-esteem seminars at our community center for our kids, I was talking about crime prevention. Far too many of our youth don't know how to deal with their emotions, and they lash out at others through violence, and they hurt themselves. When I spoke about the different activities that are available in the city for youth, activities like baseball, tennis, flag football, track, tackle football, cheer, soccer, tumbling, basketball, volleyball camp, martial arts, the Little Cooking Club, STEM Saturdays, free chess, free snorkeling, free scuba diving, free violin lessons, free percussion lessons, the Cultural Express that takes our youth on free cultural outings once a month. This is crime prevention because children aren't born bad or violent. They are born largely as blank slates. They will become what we expose them to. If we engage them early and often, find and target their interests, we can stop them from becoming mischievous. This is important because mischief leads to crime. That's important because crime leads to violence. We're not offering these activities for our health. We're offering it for their health, literally for their lives. Look, it takes a village to raise a child. We are that village. But let us all be clear. The village is meant to be a supplement and not a substitute for a parent. Now, parents are a necessary and probably the most accurate indicator of how successful a child will be in life. This is the difficulty in the conversation for us. Now, when I'm in church, there always comes a point in the sermon where the pastor says, y'all not going to say amen. I want you all to know I am fully prepared to clap for myself during this next section. The city is investing over $1.3 million to engage young people every year. As we bring new buildings online, that number will probably increase. But we should be clear. I would trade all of that for good parenting. I would take good parenting over good policing. I take good parenting over good programs. I take good parenting over good politicians. I take good parenting over good prosecuting. When it comes to public safety, good parenting is a necessary component in making a community safe, period. If a child is in your house and they don't have respect for you and your rules, they will not have respect for a teacher and the rules in a classroom. If they don't have respect for the teacher in the classroom, they will not have respect for others in the community. If they don't have respect for others in the community, they will not have respect for the laws that govern the community. Look, so often we speak about violence as though it just came with the rising sun. It just happened. Like it's brand new. No, we ignore everything that leads up to making someone violent. By the time someone reaches adverse interactions with our police department, every other social institution has failed. The family has failed. Schools have failed. The social services safety net has failed. To truly systemically reduce violence in our community, we must reach and intervene with young people early and often. We must give them coping skills early and often. We must be the difference for them in their lives early and often. We can do this as a city. We can do this as a community, but I must reiterate, it takes a village to raise a child, but by far the most important component of that village is a parent. It takes a parent. Now, it's not any one of these things that will make us safer. It's us being convicted, united, and persisting with all of these things that will make us safer. This is how you remedy years of neglect with years of attentiveness. This is how you ensure that the tears that we cried, that the floorboards that we walked are ours and not forward-born for our kids. This is the day in, day out work that makes a city strong. It's a tireless grind that comes without fanfare that makes a city strong. It's a couple of hundred police officers going to work every day, doing their best job every day that makes a city strong. It's Crime Watch members sending emails and calling and showing up at City Hall because they don't just care about their neighborhood, they care about their city and their community. That makes a city strong. It's youth football volunteers. It's youth football volunteers like Lee Prince, who shows up at the park every day with kids in this community. And what he's teaching them is not just football. It's hard work, it's teamwork, it's persistence, it's perseverance, because he knows how difficult it is to be successful, because he knows that words are plenty, but chances and real opportunity, sometimes that's few. Volunteers, the hundreds of volunteers that we have who come to work for free every day in the fall in our city, they make this city strong. It's senior citizens. It's one of our senior citizens who greeted me at Burlington Coat Factory. She grabbed me and she hugged me. She talked about a whole bunch of stuff, and I remember it because she had on this very distinctive perfume. But her point was just, thank you for doing this. I love the fact that I can shop in my hometown. She was in Burlington Coat Factory, spending all her little money. It was her mustard seed, mountain moving faith that makes this city strong. Look, it's Dr. Steve Gallen insisting that there will be no F schools in the city of Miami Gardens. And his tireless work. In the meantime, y'all gonna get that if you're on Facebook, that's his post. In the meantime, his tireless work ensuring that not only there are no F schools, we don't have any D schools anymore in the city of Miami Gardens. Look, it was his passion, his persistence, his intellect that makes us strong. It's Commissioner Barbara Jordan's memory and might that make us strong. Her memory, she remembers the promise that was made regarding the North Line, and her might, the strength to fight and persevere until we bring elevated rail down 27th Avenue to County Line Road. And all of that makes us strong. Look, it's the fact that we fall, but we don't give up. We get up. That makes the city strong. Our communal voice and efforts, that's our collective strength. United, convicted, and resolved, we are powerful. This city is strong. That strength exists even on the darkest of days. Our strength and our faith rises the sun in this city, even from the darkest of nights. Miami Gardens, residents, members of the city council, my friends and colleagues, Mr. Manager, Mr. Acting Manager, Madam City Attorney, Mr. Clerk, with one voice and a common path, the state of this city is strong. Born of the hopes of those that were and baptized in the efforts that those that are, the state of this city is strong, from the geographical limitations to its never-ending, expanding communal hope. The state of this city is strong. God bless you all, and God bless Miami Gardens.